Welcome tonight to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Joe Rayo to my left. I'm Joe Chaffee. And a heartfelt, deepest, and sincere congratulations to Mr. Rayo, who I think sometime at around 3:30 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, you surpassed the 1,000 mark on YouTube.
And what does it all mean?
Oh, it means it means something.
It means something.
It means
Of
something.
little, of little, of little import overall, but
Well, in the
at
scheme
least
of things,
the zeros, which pretty much mark
is it still
our
sitting at
lives
zero
are
zero
there.
zero? I haven't looked.
Huh?
Is it sitting at 1,000?
I haven't looked either.
Because if
I
it's
found
at
out about it
1,000,
from
because if
I
it's
found
at
out about it from
1,000,
Scott Briller, and all right.
no, because if it's at 1,000, I'll go there right now and unsubscribe and take it down to 9.99.
It'll be
Oh,
like it'll be like that movie, Mr. 3000, where the guy came up. He thought he had 3,000 hits, and he had actually three less than 3,000.
oh, good Lord! How'd they miscount that?
It was and in fact the actor, who was it? Not Chris Rock. It was an African American actor comedian, and he passed away right after that movie. So I forgot who it was, but any case, off subject.
Off
I'm
subject.
still annoyed about the fact, Joe, that here we sat 24 hours ago and never even dreamed that 24 hours later there was potential tornadic activity in
Oh,
areas
good
just
Lord!
south of here.
I saved the radar from that while we were doing the show last night. We were going around the radar. Pointed out that I was pointing out that area that was in Kentucky and West Virginia and moving east northeast, and it looked, it looked somewhat impressive, but I never imagined it was going to do what it did this morning. I don't think anybody did.
No,
No,
no. Even this morning, I looked on the
and that includes
storm
the tour.
prediction, the storm prediction site, and they didn't even have anybody in marginal
Really?
for severe.
Well, they
It's
wound
just,
up with a tornado warning.
yep.
It was, and I think two severe thunderstorm warnings that I saw, and a tornado warning. And in fact, I did happen to see a few pictures of it, of what looked like a tornado. I don't know if it touched down, but certainly from the sky shot, it looked like it. I'll wait to see what Mount Holly says about this tomorrow, whether they confirm it or not. Big hat tip to Timothy Veltman, by the way, pointing out something that we're going to take a look at, Joe, right at the top of this show. And that is, well, you remember Tropical Storm Kyle, of course.
Right.
Well, Tropical Storm Kyle uh, underwent a transition and became a extratropical storm, and it actually has become rather quite a powerhouse of an extratropical storm, and it is Storm Ellen in Ireland and for England and Scotland, and they actually have they had the red alert up for Cork County in Ireland tonight. I think it expires at midnight. But storm's pretty impressive. So I managed to find a. It's so hard to find European satellite loops. It really is. Big kudos to the U.S. Weather Service with GOES. You just go to one site; they're all there. I had to hunt around for quite a while, and whose site says you're not allowed to use it, whose site says you can't put it on the air, you got to get permission, and all the rest of it. But we were going to give. I got a shot on El Dorado weather, which I've used before, and a special thank you to them for this. I'm going to bring it up right now, and here it is. So hang on one second, folks. So this is now Storm Ellen, which was Tropical Storm Kyle, which formed off the New Jersey coast, and uh, it's really wrapped up, very impressive looking here on the satellite loop. These frames are. I'm trying to see what the time on this is, time wise, because I know on one of the sites they look like, oh, they're 3 hours apart. But that has got quite the satellite signature there. They've been getting heavy rains and very strong winds on the south coast of Ireland, and this is going to impact Ireland and England over the next couple of days. I brought up the GFS, which I haven't really done much European weather for quite a while, but this is a really wrapped up low. It's a 975-ish low, sitting right over Ireland as of 0Z. So in another 54 minutes, and it's rotating around because there's another low that forms probably out, uh, out to the east, and then that swings in for tomorrow night. So they've got a long way to go. The first arm is now through or going through, and then they get a little bit of a break, and then a second low develops here and comes up for tomorrow. So they're going to get pounded with the coastal flooding and heavy rains and strong winds. Let's see the GFS wind profile here. The 10-meter wind. I
You
mean,
got to think about we see stuff coming off of Africa and it moves westward, and we get concerned here in our part of the country. And this is kind of like a ping pong game, if you will, because this thing, as we know, Joe, developed off of our virtually off our own shorelines,
right off the
off of New
Jersey
Jersey,
coast.
and this thing went the other way to the east.
Right.
And I don't think it happens very often that the folks in the United Kingdom have to worry about any kind of activity. Well, actually, during the winter time, our nor'easters really give them a quite a beating, especially in a particularly active winter. But in the summertime, this is something that doesn't happen all that often.
No, the GFS, by the way, has got 40 to 50 knot sustained winds going on this evening on the south coast and on the west coast of Ireland. And then, as I said, that low lifts up and around, and then another low forms on the base of this and comes in for tomorrow. Now, that one brings the strongest winds more to the east. Into Wales and into what is that? It's the Irish Sea in between, correct?
Right,
And
right.
then that rotates around, and then eventually it does finally lift up to the northeast. So this is a long duration storm for them, uh, with this 1-2 punch of the system. I want to also bring up the upper air here, and there we go. Of course, let's give thanks to Tropical Tidbits for all the wonderful maps that he has, and that we can actually look at this. Look how wrapped up this upper feature is. This is pretty
Wow.
deep for August, and up it goes, and then finally it goes up into the Arctic regions and beyond, and disappears. So quite interesting action there from what was Kyle. And now let's go back home. I'm going to clean up my screen here just to get rid of close a few windows so it doesn't get stuck. Um, Hang on a second.
If I recall, when we had a Kyle, I think about 20 years ago, that lasted something like 25 days or something, and took all kinds of a crazy type path near and along the eastern seaboard. So this particular name, I don't know, has something going for it in terms of unusual tropical activity. I don't think they're
Yeah,
going to. I don't think they're going to retire it, but it's been interesting nonetheless.
here's the Mount Holly radar from this morning, Joe, when that tornado warning went up in Monmouth County. In fact, you see the red box, and then you see the bigger yellow box with the severe thunderstorm and marine warning. I was really, I mean, this was a pretty decent upper trough that was swinging on through. I I can kind of going back to yesterday and looking at what's going on. Maybe we could have thrown in a couple of showers, but I never would have imagined, even from that respect, uh, that we were going to wind up with severe weather, not just here, but also some strong thunderstorms down in southern New Jersey and Delaware Bay and parts of southern Delaware. And it took all morning for most of this to move on out. Finally, we got the sun to break out around 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon over here. Did you get any rain out of this?
Nothing. We got some very ominous looking skies around 9, 10 o'clock this morning. I got to tell you, along with all of your updates on my wife's iPad, she also has something from I think an AccuWeather app, and I took a brief look this morning. I said, "What are they talking about? Tornadoes, thunderstorms, warning, this and that." I said, "What are they? I mean, you and I, 12 hours earlier, we didn't see anything like that. I don't think anybody saw anything like this." And I took a quick look at the radar. I said, "Oh my God," which only goes to prove, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, 20 some odd years into the 21st
And
century.
you could still have a Gomer Pyle moment.
And you still have the surprise, surprise, surprise moment. And this was one of them this morning.
Yeah, Scott Briller messaged me saying that he was about 10 miles from where outside of that tornado zone, the tornado warning zone. So as I said, we'll just wait to see if Mount Holly confirms if there was an actual funnel. I didn't save um, I didn't save the actual warning, the written warning, to see if it was done because the radar showed it, or whether they had a report of a tornado, or both. So we'll wait to see what comes out of it from the Mount Holly folks. All right. So in the meantime, of course, we have the tropics to look at, and bringing up a few things here. First off, let's go to Genevieve. We'll go to Hurricane Genevieve on the Pacific side. Now, this is weakened a little bit. The eye has filled in, but still somewhat impressive. And it's also taken a track a little bit further to the right. So it's going to come very, very close to the southern tip of the Baja Peninsula as it moves on northwestward. And I'm wondering, Joe, if eventually some of this moisture is going to wind up getting into Southern California as it rides up the coast.
Well, I tell you, they need something. California's just like, especially in the northern part of California, they're just burning up out there.
Yeah.
They could use anything right now.
The upper ridge with the heat wave in the west is flattening out a little bit, so that the northern part areas up in Oregon and Washington are not at the extremes that they were a day or two ago. But there's still a large part of California and Arizona in the land of 100-degree plus. But Genevieve bringing bands of rain onto the coast. We'll take a look at the Hurricane Center's forecast here with respect to that. And on their forecast, as of 3 p.m., where they have the top winds now down to 90 miles an hour, it's north of 20 degrees north latitude. So whenever that happens, that's where basically the line is where the cooler water starts. And it's going to be a close pass, probably about 60 or 70 miles, staying offshore and kind of going more northwest as opposed to northwest over time. So it does move out pretty far out to the west of west southwest of San Diego as a tropical depression. But with one way or another, some of that moisture is probably going to wind up fanning up to the northeast and getting up into Southern California later on. This is probably we're talking about over the weekend and into the first part of next week. And we'll bring the GFS up again. We'll take a look at what that has for those folks. We'll put the Western U.S. on, and there's the upper high that is sitting right here. There's your upper high. So that ridge is not quite as pumped up as it was, getting a little bit more of a flow from the Pacific now into the northwest. And over the next couple of days, the ridge just kind of holds its own over Arizona. You see here, this is Genevieve, and gradually that ridge just kind of holds through the whole period. It edges maybe a little bit further to the northeast as we move into next week. So if there's any residual moisture, it'll probably come around on the back side of this of the high here. As the high moves eastward, some of that moisture is probably going to start fanning out to the northeast. So that'll be at least a plus. With the ridge moving further to the east, it'll lessen the impact of the heat. And unfortunately, if it brings in moisture, Joe, that means hot and humid weather for those folks.
Right, right.
Which they
Well, I
don't
mean, for
see too
them,
often.
but their version of hot and humid would probably be hot or dry heat for us. Uh, if they ever saw dew point temperatures, even approach 50 out there, that to them is like, oh my goodness,
Yeah, no,
uh,
that's a tough sell.
everything is all relative.
That it is. All right, let me close another window just to keep things going. I've got all these all the stuff that I saved from beforehand before we start the show, and I got so many windows open. I can't always see what each window is, so I have to go and pull labels down. But we're going to start off the African coast and move our way westward. And this is also on tropicaltidbits.com. Thank you, Levi Cowan, for this wonderful site. We This satellite view is you can see where Africa is, and of course on the far left you see the strong tropical wave that's been west of the Cabo Verde Islands and moving westward. Now the wave coming off the African coast is pretty strong but disorganized. The wave to the left, Joe, there's this big cluster of convection on the northwest side, and then there's convection that's trying to come around from the south. It's got that signature that there is a low there. There is an elongated low. It just still hasn't quite tightened up enough for them to make it a tropical depression.
Well, Joe, looking at the 12Z models this morning, it seemed to me like the GFS was putting far more emphasis on the system that's now coming off of Africa. That by mid or late week next week, that could very well be a potential troublemaker for somebody along the eastern seaboard. Although I think toward the end, the last few hours of and I'm talking about like beyond 10 days or whatever,
All right.
it was kind of suggesting that it might curl away or curve away from the eastern seaboard. But of the three that's out there right now, the one that's off of Africa, at least on the long term with the GFS, that one off of Africa seems to be the most potent or most robust. The other two, the GFS didn't seem to want to do much of anything.
Well, I have a theory about that. And well, for one thing, the wave in the Caribbean, which still isn't really organized, we are starting to see convection. It has been increasing some during the day. I'm going to be curious to see when it gets to the Northwest Gulf what it does. I was looking at the upper air outflow in the Gulf of Mexico for later in the weekend and early next week. And there's a deep upper trough that's, I mean, I'm talking way up in the atmosphere. There is going to be a deep trough in the western Gulf of Mexico. And I'm looking at it. It seems to me that it does show a pretty good outflow setup for this once it gets into the Northwest Gulf. So it'll be, I'm sorry, the Northwest Caribbean. So I'm going to be curious to see whether this thing fires up more than what the models are, some of the models are showing. Now, the other thing is the wave in the middle, which right now I think is the most well developed of the three. There's definitely a circulation here. I think one of the issues at the moment is the fact that there's probably the thing is so large. If you look at the circulation and the clouds up to the north, I mean, this thing really is spread out over a very large area. So I think that's part of the issue here. It's almost too big where it needs to tighten up. But I think the reason why the GFS is the GFS and the a few of the other models, if you follow the track along for what represents this, they take this thing right over all the big islands in the greater Antilles. I mean, it literally moves over. The representative low moves right over Puerto Rico, right over the Dominican Republic, and across the Dominican Republic the long way, and over the entire island of Cuba. So I think it's the land track that some of these models are showing. I mean, for example, here's the spaghetti plots. I mean, all but two of the spaghetti plot models take it right over all those big islands. I think that's the reason why you're not seeing that. I think that's the reason why the GFS and the European are not really developing this, even though you can find an identifiable feature moving along, because it basically gets ripped apart by the mountainous terrain of the entire stretch there.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Look at that. It takes a track over Puerto Rico, then it goes over the Hispaniola,
Hmm.
and then continues on that east northeast track through Cuba. Yeah, I mean, like what possibly it can't really gain. If it does that, it can't gain really a foothold in terms of any significant energy if it keeps going over islands and keeps getting ripped up and
Yeah.
trying to reform or whatever.
I think that's the reason why we're seeing that the models aren't able to do very much with that is because of the track. Now, I want to show you one of the models that actually has a track a bit further to the north. And we'll take it, I'll use this view. First of all, we've got the new GFS, which I haven't even looked at yet. So let's look at that first and see what it does. So we're out at hour 120 at this point. So here's your Caribbean system at this point is in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, and I think this little rise up is your the wave in the central Atlantic. And let me get rid of this. I'm trying to find my mouse. There it goes. So as we move it along, all you can really follow is that hump on the isobars that moves northwestward. So it really doesn't do much of anything with both those systems. But then take a look at the icon with this. Although there's a lot of tropical moisture that comes up at the southeast. If you look at the icon model has the track furthest to the north of all the models. Just have to give this a moment to load. So the icon actually misses all those islands. It goes north of the leewards, north of Puerto Rico, and now, of course, at the same time, it develops the thing in the northwest Gulf, and then that rides it northward. And there you have it here. Now, this only goes out to 120 hours, but you have a low. You have one system in the Bahamas moving through the Florida states. The other one's approaching New Orleans. So I don't know, Joe. It's. I looked at the upper air through all of this on the models. I mean, to me, the upper air conditions do look favorable for development. There's not a whole lot of wind shear going on, and again in the Gulf, I'll bring up the Gulf, the wind shear view on the Gulf, and where is it? Is it on this one? Yeah, 208.50 wind shear. So if you take a look at this, I mean, there is I'm sorry, I apologize. It's just loading these maps sometimes. Everybody's trying to get into them at the same time.
And I agree with Rick B on the chat board.
See,
yes, you really can't trust the 18Z GFS. And I've always said the intermediate, the 6 and the 18Z progs, are not as trustworthy as the primary. The
I'll switch to the 12. So that's a pretty deep trough that you've got in the Western Gulf up at 200 millibars.
I mean, it's crazy deep, Joe, for late August.
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty good outflow there. Here's where your system is, and here's the other one on the 12Z, which was sitting right over. It's just coming off the Dominican Republic. So again, it's the idea that the models are probably taking it right over those islands that's preventing it from that's keeping it from developing. So I guess at this stage, first things first is we have to see whether both systems can organize enough to form a tropical depression or a tropical storm. And then from there, we're going to have to see the tracks of both of them, but particularly the one in the central Atlantic, as to whether it goes over all those islands or not.
And I know that you had a chance to look earlier today, but we were talking yesterday about, wow, maybe we might get a real big break from all of the heat and humidity toward the end of August. And if you saw this morning, all of a sudden the upper flow is pretty well zonal or flat and doesn't really
right.
show
It went every other run, and then I think I forgot which, the 0Z. One of them had the deep trough, and one of them didn't. I think the 6Z brought the deep trough back into play, and then maybe the 12Z took it out. I mean that's down the road. That's yet to be resolved. So we're going to watch this. So we'll see what the Hurricane Center says. If they say anything different, they really haven't said too much different on their last couple of tropical weather outlooks. Although they did add a mention now, a 30% probability of the last wave in this sequence, the one moving off the African coast, a 30% chance of it developing over the next 5 days. So here's what it looks like where their little X's are on the 5-day tropical outlook. So you got 80% chance for the the Caribbean system, the 90% chance now of the system in the Central Atlantic, and a 30% chance of the one that is moving off the immediate coast.
Right.
So WPC, Mr. Rayo, does not have a whole lot of rain going on for the Northeast for the next 7 days. They do have a ton of it down in Florida and in the Gulf of Mexico, and I think that reflects the tropical action, and also east of the Florida coast down to the Bahamas. But for us here in the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic states, it looks like a little bit of a break with regards to rainfall, which has actually been quite substantial over over the last few days.
Yeah, look at all that wet weather though that's located, literally surrounding the Florida Peninsula. I mean, that's what, Joe. That's like 3 to 4 inches.
Yeah, the red is 3+. So
Yeah.
when the orange areas are all 4 and 5 inches, so it's pretty sizable. And the next the next issue with regards to the weather here in the east, which we'll take a look at on. We'll switch the model perspective around. We'll start with the upper air and take a look at that.
Incidentally, I don't want to make you feel old, Joe, but today is the 29th anniversary of Hurricane Bob, which hit eastern Long Island
Yes,
29 years ago.
that was a nice little forecast coup on my part, if I do say so. I remember going into the executive producer on going into that weekend, and there was a little blob of clouds down in the Bahamas, and they didn't. No one believed me. It hadn't even. No one believed me. I said this thing is going to become a hurricane and move up the coast, and no one believed me.
No,
And
they believe you now.
well, they did. Anyhow, here's our upper air, and of course, the dominating East Atlantic ridge continues across the subtropical Atlantic. It's that same east-west ridge, and then the strongest part of the ridge is actually what's down in the southwestern part of the U.S., which is going to shift a little bit eastward, so they get a little somewhat of a break in parts of California and certainly points north. But looking at this this is the 12Z run, which didn't really bring down that deep trough. It's a much flatter look. Like you said, it's more zonal. Although the short waves keep wanting to swing into the eastern part of the United States, but it was a flattish look. And I just take a look at the new 18Z run to see if it went back to that deep trough. Yep, back to the deep trough, Mr. Rayo. Look at that. Look at that, wrapped up like an animal up in northern Maine. Whoa. Well, that's later in the period, but I'll roll back.
It only goes to show you what I've been saying, and that is that these 6 and 18Zs are so far off the beaten trail from what we saw, just 6 hours earlier with the primary run. So, you know, I don't know. I'm not gonna really believe that.
Well, I mean, this is
Show it to me.
reasonable.
Show it to me 3 or 4 days before the event, and if it's still
Well,
looking like
look,
that,
all I'll say is we've had two very deep troughs this month. So if it does happen, it wouldn't be out of step with what we've seen. But it is back there. But this is now, it's a little bit further along. It had it on the prior runs the weekend of coming in the last weekend. So that was August 29th and 30th. And here at
July
least,
29th.
what's that?
You said July 29th,
I'm
30th,
sorry,
not
August 29th and 30th.
No,
Had,
July 29th and 30th, Joe.
wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought you were looking backwards.
No, no,
You're
no,
looking
no.
forward.
I'm looking forward. No,
You're looking forward.
the last
Okay.
weekend of the month, August 29th
Oh,
and 30th.
right.
Yeah, we do have some kind of shortwave that comes through that Friday, but yeah, it's nothing like what was being shown. That lifts out, and then it's the one behind it that it goes bonkers with this wrapped up. Oh, I wonder if it has snow in Maine. Just kidding.
I tell you right now, we could use something like that because it looks like after a beautiful day tomorrow and a semi decent day on Friday, we go right back into the steamer for Saturday, Sunday. And I think that there's a chance maybe for New York City that we could be looking at like a number of consecutive 90-degree days, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of
Well,
next week.
near 90 anyway.
Well, I could see temperatures on any or all of those days next week, at least at Central Park, getting to 90 degrees. But I don't see 95, but I could certainly see approaching that 90 plateau.
No, yeah, 90. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know 90 I
yeah.
could buy. No, it was what we were saying yesterday that it might get up. We might have a few days back up around 90, but it doesn't look like it's going to be something where it, pushes up to 94 or 5. I think that's still valid. I'm just trying to gauge here because we have a couple of weak fronts that move on through, but they don't really do very much. They don't really have much with them. The highs behind them are fairly weak, and we may have to wait until later next week before you finally get something of value, and that would be for whatever was going to be setting up for next weekend. So there's not too much more we can say really with regards to uh, all the elements out there with respect to our future. Other than the fact that the tropics are the obvious big variable, and that is not going to, we're not going to really know too much out of that until we finally get something to develop, if something develops. So um, we just sit back here at this point and wait and see what happens. And I just want to pull up, Joe, just in case. Let's take a look at the radar in case there's something on there that we need to be worried about that we're not anticipating. But no, it is relatively quiet tonight in Kentucky and West Virginia. It's not loaded like it was yesterday with stuff moving to the northeast. There's some showers and storms scattered through the Carolinas and down through Georgia and off the Florida East Coast, up back through Texas. We've got some showers actually moving from north to south, and that's because of they're on the eastern side of that big upper high. It's not often you see echoes moving north to south in that part of the world. And in fact, take a look at this. These echoes here. This is weird. This is interesting. Your upper high and these echoes are all rotating around it in a clockwise fashion, getting showers and thunderstorms over the top and along the bottom of the high and on either side of it. That's pretty cool.
Kind of like the ring of fire, so to speak, right?
Yeah, only
Yeah.
with storms going on around it. And there's actually even still a few storms that's popping up on the radar parts of California today. Another day where they've got them scattered in the inland spots in the southwest. It's a pretty interesting phenomena. We don't really pay a lot of attention to the weather out in the west because we're eastern folks. So we're not really all that familiar with how things work in that part of the world.
That part of the world, again, during especially June, July, August, you don't think of you think of that as the desert Southwest. And meanwhile, they get it seasonally. They get some occasional, potent thunderstorms, the so-called monsoon season. I'm
Yep.
not. I think monsoon season though is coming to an end now. At least in that part of the world, they usually start petering out as we get into later August and as we move into September.
Well, we are back up full screen. I noticed, by the way, we did get, we've got some super chat hits to acknowledge. Steve Lapointe, thank you, and he gives you special congrats on your 1,000 subscribers. Jason Kaplan, thank you so much for hitting super chat. Scott Briller, also hitting super chat. We've got a hit from Nick Cortez. And there's one more, but it's below the screen. I can't
I
see
have
it.
Brendan Doherty.
Brandon Doherty. Thanks, guys, all for hitting super chat tonight. Joe and I really appreciate it greatly. And we'll do a little Briller Jeopardy at this point. So here we go. Are you ready? The
I'm all set. I'm
what's
all.
what's that?
I said I'm all set. I almost wish it could be like the old Jeopardy, where I could actually have a slate and I could
Yeah,
write my
yes,
answer.
exactly. By the way, tonight's Briller Jeopardy is brought to you by Timothy Veltman, who is one of our regulars on the chat board, and he is subbing for Scott Briller, who's on another COVID run. tonight. So we wish him well and stay safe.
Are you sure? Because I saw Scott on the chat board a little while ago. In fact,
Oh,
I think he
oh,
even
I'm
gave.
sorry. Oh, you know what? I didn't read this correctly. I'm sorry. I take it back. Tomorrow is his COVID run. I'm
Okay,
sorry. No, it's Briller Jeopardy. The category is Albany records, which is with thanks to Timothy Veltman, who's one of our regulars here.
right.
Okay. Um, you know what? I'm thinking I got my peaches and my wine waiting for me in the fridge. Okay. So, what is the highest and lowest temperature ever in Albany?
Well, I would say since the highest in New York City is 106, and they're inland, and I think that they certainly are capable of getting almost as high as that. I'll say I'll say for the all-time high 104, and for the low
Ding, ding,
temperature,
ding, 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 ding,
we hit one.
ding.
It was 104.
Well,
Do I
yes.
get five? Do I get the
No,
500
you.
altogether?
Well, what do they give you when you're one of the first four contestants bidding and you hit you get the exact price? What do you get? $100?
I think it's 500,
Now it's
and
500. It used to be 100.
I think it's yeah, it used to be 100. So
All
I
right,
think
so you
it's
get five.
500 now.
So it's 500 now.
And
Okay.
and back in the olden days, you'd get up on stage and Bob Barker would say, "Reach into
Reach
this
into the
pocket,"
pocket. Yes.
and then that apparently that got somebody really upset that he was telling them to do that, and so Drew Carey now, if you hit it on the nose, Drew Carey has to reach into his own
Oh, and
pocket,
he brings
and
out a wad of bills with a rubber band around it, and then
right,
it
and
pulls
has
it
to
out.
hand them,
Okay. Oh God. All
because
right.
it's not politically correct to reach into somebody's pocket for money, I guess. Never mind. 15 below, 15 below is the all-time record in New York, but Albany, I know, is capable of getting a lot lower than 15 below. So I'm going to say for the all-time record low in Albany, I'm going to say minus 24.
Well, but by prices now, wait a minute. Now, by prices right rules, minus 24 is actually over. So you lose. It's minus 28.
Oh, well,
Okay. The most snowfall in one winter.
in Albany,
Yes.
well, once again, Boston a few years ago got like 100 and some odd inches, and I know Albany possibly could get even higher than that. So and sometimes they may even get some renegade lake effect. I'll say 112 inches.
Very good. 112.5.
112.5?
Yes.
I was half an inch off.
Yes.
Wow.
There's another joke in there, but I'm not going to touch it. What what was what was Albany's longest heat wave?
Again, I've been using New York City as the comparison and knowing what Albany is capable or not capable of doing. I think New York City's longest heat wave is 12 days. And is it possible that Albany could have, being inland and away from the water, a slightly more? I'll say 15.
10.
10.
10.
All right.
By the way, the year of the 112.5 inches was in the winter of 1970-71. Okay. In that same winter, Albany recorded the most consecutive days of temperatures of temperatures below zero or below. So I'm guessing the low temperature was below zero. So how many days in a row was that?
And I would assume that was probably like the morning low that they didn't.
Yeah.
But you're not saying that they stayed below zero.
No, I can't imagine they did, but
No, they couldn't do
no,
that.
but it's most consecutive days of zero or below. So I'm assuming that that's the low temperature.
Right. I'll say 5.
It's actually a pretty big number. I was kind of it's a big number. 15.
15 consecutive
Now,
0 degree warning.
when you think about it, though, if that winter was their snowiest winter on record, and
Right.
they had a ton of snow cover on the ground, it's quite possible that they had night after night of radiational cooling.
Wow.
Well, I'm not saying all 15 of those nights was radiational cooling. There were probably a few air mass changes in the mix,
I
but
used to I used to listen to WGY back in those days. They're at Where's WGI? GY is actually Schenectady,
Right.
and but they used to get the forecast and readings from Albany County Airport. So I'm wondering why I don't remember. Well, maybe it's because in New York City we didn't have particularly a lot of snow. I think New York City that year, 70, 71, we probably had, lots of snow changing to rain events, or
Yes.
maybe events where it was just this close to being snow, but it was more just a cold rain. And just north of us, that's where it was cold enough. That's why Albany got all of that snow.
Brandon Doherty says his wife loves us, but she also calls us the grumpy old weather guys.
Yeah,
I don't know that we're grumpy. You're grumpy. I don't know that I'm
I'm
grumpy.
grumpy.
You're
I'm grumpy.
grumpy.
I got grumpy this morning when I saw that thunderstorm. I said, "There you go. Where did that come from?"
Yeah. Um, yeah. No. I think we're up most of the time. I just some days I have to. I mean, to be honest, because we do this show at least 5 days a week, and some days, some weeks 6, and some weeks 7. It's every once in a while I have a tough time trying to kind of motivate myself. It seems like once I get started, I'm okay. But lately I've been getting very tired around 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the afternoon, wanting to just like take a
You know
nap.
why, Joe? Because you
Why?
get up at 5 in the morning and walk 10 miles.
Which I didn't do today because of all that stuff that was on the radar. And then of course
Yeah,
it started. It didn't pour, but it did rain. It rained hard here for a short period of time, so I couldn't even walk today. So
right.
maybe I'm missing that. I missed my walk, and usually it gives me an energy boost. I was planning to take it later, during the late afternoon, but that didn't happen. So I'll be back on the road tomorrow morning.
I believe it. Well, tomorrow morning you may need a light jacket or maybe a sweater or something because I think out your way it'll probably be in the mid and low 50s maybe tomorrow morning.
Uh,
Well, maybe up here it'll probably be mid to
you
low
up there,
50s.
yeah.
Yeah,
Up here in the late summer and early fall, because the ocean and sound water are so warm, it's hard. At least initially, it doesn't always radiate as efficiently here as it does, say, in the late fall, in the winter, and in the spring months.
I'm just looking at the Brewers Jeopardy question for you
Okay.
for Wednesday, and the first out of the box, Scott's first question for you is: what year did the first iPhone come out?
The first
The first,
iPhone,
the first iPhone.
2000. Well, hmm. Oh, I want to say 2002 or 2003.
A little bit too far back, Joe.
I mean, 2008,
That's closer. 2007.
7. Okay. Because Steve Jobs died, I believe, in 2011, and he came back to Apple. He was thrown out of Apple by the board, and then they brought him back. I think he was brought back in 2002 or 2003. And this on a day, by the way, that Apple, which just a handful of months ago got to, no, when did it get to its $1 trillion valuation? I think it was back in 2018. So it is now today it hit for a while today. The company was valued at over $2 trillion.
Lovely. Not bad for somebody who started his company in the back in his garage, right?
Yeah, yeah, and just from the standpoint of valuations, of course, Tesla stock has been a marvel to watch, and I think it's just under 1,900 a share now. But in terms of how much it's increased in value over the last couple of weeks, it works out to Elon Musk, who's now the fourth richest person on Earth. Uh, in the last 4 weeks, his net worth increased $11 million an hour. Can you imagine? I mean, I can't even fathom that.
I can't.
$11 million an hour, right? That's crazy. That's crazy stuff.
It is.
Yeah, that's $1 million like every 6 minutes. In the length of
Here
the
and here
we're
and here.
46 minutes into this show, Joe. At that rate, we should have at least $1 million. Let's round it off to 48. So we would have gotten to. We should have $8 million between us. Our value has increased by $8 million just in the length of this show.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, we know that
Yeah.
reality ain't happening.
No.
So
Question number two is that the first music CD that came out in the United States was in 1984. Who was the first artist to release a CD? And it's your lucky day. You get multiple choices. And
okay, well, what are the choices?
well, I'm not sure what he means by that. Does that mean that I have to give you the multiple choices and you have to pick which one is which?
I
Or
guess,
okay,
yeah.
I guess so.
That's how
Yeah,
multiple choice works.
you
You have to
know what
give
I'm
me a
talking about
choice.
because these questions sometimes they're all like,
Well, you're reading them in the chat, but when you read it on Messenger, yeah, they're all kind of compressed. So you're
right,
going like this. It's 5 or 6 words to each line, and you have to make sure you see the period or the comma. I get
right.
it. Go on.
All right. So again, the first artist to release a CD, and this is the first music CD came out in the United States in 1984. Who was the first to release a CD? Here's your lucky day. You got multiple choices. Answers: A. Beatles,
No.
B. Billy Joel,
No.
C. Madonna,
Yes.
D. Bruce Springsteen.
I'm gonna say Madonna.
You're gonna say Madonna?
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Really? Who was it?
It was Mr. Springsteen.
Really?
Yes.
All right. Well, I
Hey, it
would.
could have been Madonna. If it said the answer was Madonna, that's what the chairman, Mr. Briller, said. I would have believed Madonna, but he says it was Bruce Springsteen. So
All right.
there you go.
Was that the last question?
No, the final
The
Jeopardy
final
question
question is.
is what was the highest and lowest temperature ever in Nassau, the Bahamas?
Oh, good lord. Um, so Nassau, Bahamas. I'll say because they're out there, and I'll say 90. I'll say 96 for the high, and for the low, I'll say. Well, in 1977, when that big cold front went down with that big Arctic air that brought snow flurries to Miami.
Right.
So I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say like 45.
Well, the highest was 98
I missed that by 2.
and the lowest was 41.
Oh, so I was 4 too high. Well, those aren't too bad. Those guesses weren't
Not
too
bad.
shabby.
No.
They weren't too shabby.
Yes.
All right.
And
So,
thank all of you. Thank Mr. Briller, and thank all of you for the congratulations on reaching 1,000. So now I have to sit here and make a determination now of what I do now when I have 1,000. So
well, we'll discuss that. Anyway, I'm just noticing that the new tropical weather outlook is out, and the Hurricane Center with noting, as we pointed out, that the convection's been increasing with the one in the Caribbean now, the Caribbean that's in the central Caribbean. And the Hurricane Center says this system's gradually becoming better organized, and a tropical depression is likely to form in the next couple of days when the system reaches the Northwest Caribbean. I just, you know what? Watch that one because of the outflow setup in the Gulf of Mexico. I think is set up for that to intensify. I don't care what the models do with it. Uh, that's my prediction. And also, the satellite images indicate that the low 850 east of the windwards is becoming better defined. In addition, the associated shower and thunderstorms are showing signs of organization. So it really just needs to tighten up a bit, and a tropical depression could be forming. So they may be getting ready to pull the trigger on this one, perhaps if not at 11 o'clock, maybe at 5 a.m. On Thursday. 90% probability for both of those. And now on the one coming off the African coast, which is still on the X is still on land, by the way. The they just say some slow development is possible. They now have a 10% chance in the next 2 days and a 40% chance now in the next 5. So uh,
So we're looking at Laura, we're looking at Marco, and possibly
Nana,
sometime down the road, Nana.
Nana.
Yes.
All right, so we'll leave it at that. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again for those of you for Steve Lapointe, Jason Kaplan, Scott Briller, Nick Cortez, and Brandon Doherty for hitting Super Chat tonight. Very much appreciated. And we will see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern Time.
We'll be telling everybody how beautiful the weather was.
Oh,
On
wait.
Thursday.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. We have
Yes.
someone on the chat board. Anthony, if you're still on, unhide Graham Cracker. Okay, there's someone who's calling himself Graham Cracker, and his uh, comments that were hidden. I can see them; they're unhidden. The first one says, "Is this a joke?" And then the second one says, "Who are these hacks?" We're hacks now. We must have made it to the big world because we're hacks. So go ahead, unlock Mr. Graham Cracker. I have a couple of pie recipes that I could use graham cracker crust to grind up with. I will just tell you one thing, because I noticed if you're going to write a comment, there are people who just apparently just spend their entire lives acting like trolls. But you already know when, because they type in capital letters. Thank you, Anthony. So, Mr. Graham Cracker, if you happen to be still on, the hacks are here to listen to whatever intelligent thing you could possibly have to say. I should have drank my wine and eaten my wine soaked peaches before before this, if I knew this was coming ahead of time. Oh, good lord. Oh, well, whoever it was must have went away, because either that or I've stunned them to silence.
Brendan Doherty says hacks and the grumpy old weatherman.
Yeah, we're grumpy. I know. And you're right, Joe. It's probably getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. It makes me kind of tired by the time we get to this hour of the day.
Hey, I've had in recent days, Joe, I haven't gone to bed until 4 o'clock in the morning. So
Really? Yeah. See, I couldn't. I couldn't do.
I just I plop in the bed, and every 15 minutes I look at what the digital, clock says now. Oh, it's 2:18 now. The 30 minutes later, so in between, of course, breaks to go to
Wee
the
wees.
Quattro de Bagno. So
Yes. You have to go to the sandbox.
yes.
All right. Well, anyway, let's leave it at that before we degenerate into another level here. All right. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. And that's it. Have a great night.
Nighty night.